A scammer tenant in Miami, Florida tried to withhold rent from her landlord because she said her landlord was not doing repairs, but those repairs were non existent. So her landlord evicted her. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's coming out of Miami, Florida. So I don't cover Miami or Florida as often because a lot of the times they actually do have strong landlord rights there, and the tenant doesn't rule everything. But in places like Miami, they have all these local laws that have made it a little bit more difficult for landlords there to operate, right? And one of those laws happens to be this thing where basically tenants can withhold rent if they say, oh, well, the landlord isn't doing the repairs, right? And so this tenant, who's a scammer, by the way, by everything in this article, kind of proves the point that she's a scammer. She tried to withhold rent for repairs that didn't exist. Really, she just wanted to be able to stay for free. That's my personal opinion. Or she wanted extension on how long it's going to take her to pay her monthly rent. So, I'm not surprised that she got evicted. I'm not. I really am not. And you're going to find out exactly why when I get into the article. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. So in your place where you invest, the city, municipality, or state, do they have laws that allow the tenants to withhold rent before, if they say the landlord is not making repairs? And just comment down below where you're at and what the rules are where you own your properties, okay? Because here in Nebraska and in Missouri where I own my properties, tenants can't do that stuff, okay? They cannot withhold their rent if the repairs aren't being made. So anyway, let's get into this article. This article is coming from MiamiTimesOnline.com, and it says, a cautionary tale about knowing your rights and the risks of withholding rent. And they play this off from the tenant's perspective, but it's obvious to me that the tenant is a scammer, okay? And so I have to read between the lines. I've told you this many times before. You have to read between the lines because, simply put, there's stuff and you're like, well, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. And if you have any common sense whatsoever, you realize, hey, there's more to the story, okay? So anyway, let's get into it. National eviction filings are up 50% from pre-COVID numbers, according to the Princeton University's Eviction Lab, and people who fail to pay rent for whatever reason face a greater risk of being shown the door. In the past month, 4,330 evictions were filed in the Miami-Fort Lauderdale area, the Eviction Lab revealed. And the Community Justice Project, whose work increases access to quality, affordable housing, counted 19,972 filed evictions, a vast majority of which were residential in Miami-Dade County in 2022. So, yeah, they're going over the statistics, right? But here's the question. Were those eviction filings, were they following the law? Yes, they were. And I guarantee that the grand majority of them for non-payment of rent. That's the 90 to 95% of all eviction filings are for non-payment of rent. So this isn't landlords sitting there just being mean and evicting people for no reason. They're not getting paid. And we deserve to be paid money that, they signed a contract saying, hey, we're going to pay, and then they're not paying. Well, what do you think we're going to do? Yes, we're going to file those evictions. But let me continue. Shannon Rose was evicted in September from Gallery on the River, a residential apartment building at 401 Northwest North River Drive, after purposely withholding rent. She did not anticipate being among those nearly 20,000 filed evictions last year. Gallery on the River was developed by Related Urban, which owns other gallery locations across Miami, with funding from the county and private partners. Prior to this latest eviction, Rose had at least 2 other eviction lawsuits filed against her, one of which was under her business alias, Bridge Gold. So that's a red flag. That's a huge red flag right there that, hey, maybe there's something going on with this tenant, okay? She's already had 2 other eviction filings. And now, just magically, where she's living now, well, she's getting evicted again. See, this is why I tell people, if you see evictions filed against somebody, well, that's a very big red flag. That's the kind of person I don't rent to. If you have an eviction filing on your record, that's telling me already that, hey, you're probably going to be paying me rent late or not paying me at all. Okay. So I wouldn't even be renting to you. But for some reason, this landlord decided, hey, I guess we should rent to this lady. Maybe because they received some money from the state or from the local government, and maybe they're obligated to try to help those type of people out. I've been couch hopping since then, she said, recounting her short lived 4 month occupancy at Gallery on the River. If not for friends and family, I would be homeless. This apartment was very important to me because it was my way of bouncing back. I had just left another nightmare apartment. Moving into this building, I thought I was getting ready to bounce back. It was a brand new building, and for about 20 days, everything was moving ahead. The 12-story affordable housing and workforce apartment complex, advertised as an ideal place to live, work, and play, was nothing short of a nightmare, Rose said, one that allegedly began with a window leak. Yeah. So this lady was like, oh, well, everywhere I've lived has been a nightmare. There's been problems everywhere I go. You're like, no, there hasn't been problems everywhere you go. But you have been at every place that you go, so maybe you're the problem. Okay, maybe you need to face reality, or maybe other landlords need to just stop renting to you because you are a problem. You've had 3 evictions on you now. Okay, there's no way. I'd rather rent to a person who's dead than put you in one of my units. Okay, there's no way I would rent to you. Okay, you've proven yourself to be a bad tenant just by having 3 evictions filed against you. And talking about you're gonna get on your feet or whatever. Anyway, let me continue because we're gonna get into the part about the repairs that she claimed didn't get made and why she was withholding the rent. And that's what's really interesting about this story. On June 3rd, 2022, at about 3 a.m., I felt water dripping on my face and woke up to discover that my window was leaking, she explained. The leak was in my bedroom over the window frame, which I would say was about 4 feet long. Along the length of the window is this long crack, and that was where the water was coming from. Not only was water coming from the crack, but I later noticed that the water was coming down from behind the drywall and underneath the wood floor. You could hear the water underneath it when you're walking. Rose told management she slipped and fell while getting out of bed because of the leaking window. A maintenance worker stopped by that day to examine and photograph the window frame and concluded that there was a minor crack that couldn't be repaired until the rain, due to the approaching tropical storm Alex, subsided. Property manager Belkis Herrera informed Rose by email that a team member would return June 6th or 7th to make repairs. So it sounds like to me the maintenance was on the ball. Okay, they went out there, they saw that there was a minor crack out there, right? And they would be unable to repair it because it was raining hard. There was a tropical storm coming in. And they were like, hey, in a few days, we're going to have this fixed. There shouldn't be any problem, right? Well, that's not good enough for this tenant. This tenant's just suddenly slipping and falling. Maybe she thought that she could win a lawsuit or something. Like I said, this lady's a scammer. She's a straight scammer, 3 evictions on her file, and she's using a tiny crack in a window as an excuse to stop paying rent. This is ridiculous, okay? And yet they write this article as though she's the victim. So she's nothing but a scammer, and they're playing her off like a victim. Can you believe this sort of stuff? Concerned about the lack of urgency to complete the repairs ahead of the stormy weekend, during which the storm ultimately dropped 10 to 15 inches of rain on South Florida the next day, Rose emailed a 7-day notice to Herrera disclosing her intent to withhold rent until repairs were made and a recurring issue with electrical outlets being blown out was resolved. It was dated June 3rd of last year, the day Rose said the leak began, and also the same day she intended to pay her monthly rent, though it was due on June 1st. She said rental payments were accepted by the landlord up until the 3rd of each month. Wow, just magically, just on the date the rent is due, this problem just comes from nowhere. I wouldn't be surprised one bit if she cracked that window herself, okay? Wouldn't be surprised one bit. Because you know what? This is the kind of thing these scammer tenants will do in order to get out of paying. That's what they're doing. They pretend they slip and fall. They create repairs out of nothing. This just sounds like a scam, and the landlord is just falling straight into this trap where they have this tenant in there. But you know what? The landlord came out on top this time because she got evicted, and I'm glad that she got evicted because you know what? Doing this sort of thing, you know, you get what you deserve. You get what you deserve. She ended up homeless for doing all this nonsense because she didn't know the law like she thought she did. Okay, so let me continue. I wanted the issue fixed. Once you pay them, you waive your rights. I was just following the law, she said, referencing the Miami-Dade County Tenant Bill of Rights and Florida's Landlord Tenant Act, which outlines rights of tenants and landlord obligations, such as maintaining rental units. She then received a 3-day notice demanding her $2,602 balance be paid by June 9th, but she insisted on withholding rent until the window was fixed. And let me skip down a little bit because I want to get into the part where she's actually evicted because she obviously didn't know the law like she thought. Okay, it says here Rose personally notified the mayor at Gallery on the River's June 27th, 2022 opening reception of her intention to continue withholding rent and was referred to the county's Office of Housing Advocacy, which had initially vouched for Rose to move into Gallery on the River pending a relocation assistance application through the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. OHA explained her rights and the eviction process, along with connecting her to legal service providers, said a spokesperson from the office, explaining that the office could not provide legal advice. We again stress that withholding rent could be an involved legal matter, often resulting in an eviction being filed, and that she should consult with an attorney. In light of the filed eviction, OHA said it made every effort to coordinate with Related Urban to prevent Rose's eviction through ERAP funding, but said her application was denied because she surpassed the $54,640 income threshold. Rose asserts that her income was less than that. So basically, what they're saying here is that this landlord, who is, to me, it sounds like they are a nonprofit landlord, okay, who is working in conjunction with the government to keep people, in somewhat affordable housing in a very, very expensive area, Miami-Dade County, okay. And they were doing everything they could to try to keep her housed. They were trying to get her rental assistance, etc. And she's getting denied because she makes too much money. She should have been able to pay her rent on her own, and she couldn't. Okay. And so what happens? She lies and says, "Oh, no, I don't make that much money." What a joke. What a joke. Okay. So, yeah, this is a tenant who is unwilling to take responsibility for her actions, and she faced the consequences, which was eviction. She got evicted from a nonprofit place that was giving her a chance, even though she already had 2 evictions on her record. Give me a break. What kind of, this is just so dumb. Okay. What kind of bad decisions do you have to make? And this is a good story for people who want to know what scammers, what the kind of lies they tell, the kind of things they're willing to do in order to get something for free, because this is what she really wanted. She wanted the rental assistance to pay her rent for her. She didn't want, or she wanted the landlord to just let her stay there without her paying rent. Meanwhile, she's off working a job that pays a reasonable salary. Not that much for Miami, but if you make over 55 grand, you're making okay money, right? And she didn't want to put any of that money towards the actual debt that she was owed, and she didn't want to work with a nonprofit landlord in order to make sure that these things happened. And you know what? I like this story because it ended well for the landlord, and it does show you that, hey, sometimes we win. Okay, this isn't all good for the tenants, and this pro tenant story just made her look like a bad person.